And welcome, everybody. It is a Thursday edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, and a lot to get to. We recap the first day of training camp, some interesting quotes from Myles Garrett, some interesting observations from the great Albert Breer of SI. We'll talk about the Guardians pulling out a tough victory last night against the Red Sox, and can they keep it going today? Plus, more expansion of conferences in college sports. I'm going to hit on that a little bit as well. Plus the trade deadline in baseball. All ahead here in the bullpen on a Thursday, right here.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
All right, here we are. We are back, and it's another beautiful day in Cleveland, Ohio. Sun is shining, at least as of, what time is it? 8:30 this morning when I'm recording this. And there's plenty to get to. So let's begin with it. Yesterday, the first day of training camp. I haven't been to camp yet. Well, obviously, yesterday was the first day and I didn't go. I'm going on vacation next week. I may try to go this Friday to just get a feel for it before I go on vacation. Then I'll go a few times after I come back. And I know that the Deshaun Watson news is going to break. I've been convinced for weeks that the news is going to break while I'm on vacation. Obviously, I really want to be able to talk about it when it happens, but the way it's going right now, I feel like it's going to happen when I'm away next week. But, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I hope it happens today or tomorrow, but I don't know. At this point, we can't hold our breath for anything. Before we get into the day one observations of training camp, and some interesting comments from Myles Garrett yesterday, and some really, smart comments from Myles Garrett that really have you thinking. I just wanted to get into a stat I saw on ESPN. They had a column, like an interesting stat for every team, and I didn't realize a couple of things about how the Browns were very unlucky last year. Now, we know Baker Mayfield got hurt. They had some injuries, but everybody's got injuries. The Browns weren't particularly unlucky there. You could argue maybe Baker because it was the quarterback, but Browns didn't have more injuries than that many teams. But here's some interesting stats. Number one, the Browns' opponents last year, I don't think this ever got brought up. I didn't realize this. Browns' opponents last year did not outright miss a single field goal. So you may remember the Browns blocked a field goal attempt by Joey Sly of Houston in week 2. But and that was the only missed field goal attempt by any kicker against the Browns last year, which is wild. If you think about that. And who, you don't really think about, you think about the field goals in the moment for the game, but that's just, I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I didn't even remember that. Like, who would have thought of that? But every field goal that wasn't blocked, and only one was made by the Browns' opponents. Every single one. Secondly, that's just weird luck that probably will change, right? Those things, there's really, there's nothing you could do. That's just pure luck. You're not going to block a lot of field goals. Nobody does. The other interesting stat to show some bad luck for the Browns in 2021 was this. The Browns had the worst fumble recovery rate in the league at 35%. So when there was a fumble, either by the Browns or their opponents, they were the least likely team to recover that fumble. Now, unlike the field goal thing, there may be some level of personal responsibility, I guess, on that when it comes to, it's not just 100% luck, but I think it's, probably 98%. I don't know how you'd quantify the part that's not luck, so we'll say it is mostly luck. Browns recovered only 5 of 17 fumbles on the so when the Browns opponents on offense fumbled, they fumbled 17 times against the Browns defense. And the Browns defense only recovered 5 of those 17 fumbles. That's awful. And again, I think it's mostly luck where it ends up, but some of it's guys not, covering up, or you trying to do too much, maybe trying to pick up the ball. And then on offense, not quite as bad, but still also really bad. The Browns offense fumbled 14 times, and they only recovered their own fumble 6 of those 14 times. And then on special teams, there was 3 fumbles, and they only recovered 1. So overall, there were 34 fumbles, either by the Browns or their opponents, and the Browns only recovered 12 of those 34, which is 35%. And that's terrible. Worst in the league. So if the Browns get better quarterback play, which they should, at least when Deshaun Watson plays, they'll get significantly better quarterback play. They might even get better quarterback play than Brissett because of how poorly Baker played last year. And if the luck turns it all, like even if the Browns are middle of the pack in fumble recoveries, and I'm not saying be the best in the league, I'm just saying get the middle of the pack and be a little luckier in terms of opponents' field goals and be more disciplined in terms of penalties. The Browns were up there in terms of penalties last year. That's going to turn a lot of L's into W's if they can do that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, the Browns could, for whatever reason, end up 32nd again in fumble recovery rate. But those are just some hidden numbers that who's talking about that? You don't even really think about that. When there's a fumble and the offense recovers their own fumble, you don't often think about the opportunity cost that happened there, but that's certainly the case. Now, you recover the fumble and the offense can't do anything with it. Well, maybe not. But even if they do half the time, even if you recovered another 6 fumbles by the defense and the offense only did something with it 3 times, maybe that would have gotten you 2 more wins. I mean, I don't remember each game circumstance, but those are certainly possible. Even that slight difference could make a big difference in terms of whether you go to the playoffs or not. So just some interesting stats to chew on, I thought. All right, now let's get specifically to what happened yesterday in training camp. First, I was disappointed that Deshaun Watson didn't speak. And I don't know if that was him not wanting to speak or the Browns saying to him, don't speak. Let's wait, let's wait till the decision happens and then we'll figure it out there. But I really believe that it is time for Deshaun Watson to talk about football. And I understand that in Berea, and I'll get a better feel for it when I go for the first time this season, that there's a lot of national media members there that want to ask about the off-the-field stuff. I get it. He gets it. But he's talked about it a couple of times already. There's no new news. Nothing is really, I guess the only thing that's new since he last talked about it, what's new? He settled the 20 cases. He's had the hearing with the judge, and the Texans have settled with 30 women, I think. So if I were Deshaun Watson, I would want to talk to the media on the first day, which he didn't. Now, again, maybe the Browns are telling him no. I don't know why he's not talking, and maybe he will today or maybe he will tomorrow. I don't know. But if I were him, I'd want to get up there, be out front, not be hiding from the media. I'd answer 1 or 2 questions about the off-the-field stuff in terms of specifically the settlements. Hey, because somebody probably wants to ask, hey, you said you weren't going to settle. Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? If you're innocent, why did you settle? And, I think he could answer that question. I'm sure they have a nice answer prepared. And after that, say, okay, that was, new, And now I'm moving on to football. I think our local beat reporters are ready to talk football with him. I think, maybe I'm wrong. I am. We've talked about the off the field stuff. He's told you all he's going to tell you. He's not going to give you some big news. Again, it's reasonable at this point to ask about the settlements. Why did you settle when you said you weren't going to? And again, I don't know what the perfect answer is to that. It's probably something of the nature of, I just wanted to put this behind me. I wanted to put this behind me. I thought it was best. And that's it. And then I want to move on and talk about football because I think that's what the fans want to talk about. And I understand people got their stories to write, but if I was him, I'd answer that one or two questions, and then I would say, folks, that's all I got on that. We've talked about it now 3 times. If do you have any football questions? Nicely, not being contentious about it. And I think I can't, maybe some people will have a problem with that. Probably people would. Maybe I would have in the past. I don't know, but I wouldn't now. And I don't think most people will. And I think the fans want to hear about what Deshaun Watson thinks of this football team, what he thinks of his teammates. Is he ready to play? If he isn't suspended somehow, if his suspension's for it, how are you preparing for the season right now? How hard is it to prepare when the potential suspension is hanging over you? How's your chemistry with Amari Cooper and the other wide receivers? What do you think of the young guys? What's it like to have a great offensive line in front of you for the first time? What's it like to have a great backfield behind you for the first time? These are the questions that I want answers to. The other stuff's important. He's answered a lot of it. He needs to answer it one more time. I get it about the settlements. I think that's a completely fair question to ask. And then let's talk some football. Because the media's job is to get the stories the fans want. And some fans want the off-the-field stuff, and they've had that. That's been the story for the last 6 months. There's been very little talk of football. But fans, the media's the conduit to the fans. And the fans want the story about on the field. Deshaun Watson hasn't really been asked any of those questions, and I'd like the answers to those things. I want to know what he thinks of the talent around him. I want to know how excited he is to finally get protection for the first time after taking 1 million hits in Houston. I want to know where he is physically and mentally in terms of being ready to play when his number is called, when he's able to. Is he ready to play in week 1? How does he think they should prepare for the season knowing he might get suspended? What's his relationship like with Jacoby Brissett? How are they working together? How's his transition to working with Kevin Stefanski for the first time? How is life in Cleveland for him? I think there's a lot of things, that I want to know about and that fans want to know about. And that doesn't mean the other stuff gets ignored. It hasn't been. That's all that's been talked about. And it still will be continued to talk about. And it's still an important story. And it's still unsettled. And there'll be more talk about it when Judge Robinson makes her decision, and ultimately whether or not the league or the players' union with Watson appeal. But we got to get into some football, don't we? I think that's what fans want to hear about. I know that's what I want to hear about. So Myles Garrett had some interesting quotes when asked about Deshaun Watson, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to tell you, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of a great joy, folks. And guess what? There's a new flavor. How about this? Indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Cookie dough chunk puffs covered in 100% real chocolate. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and your family. It'll be the perfect treat, or you can find a really good hiding place and just keep them for yourself. I think I might do that. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just a quick bite. Go with it. Go to Built.com, BUILT.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15. So I mentioned that Myles Garrett had some interesting comments about Deshaun Watson. Well, not really about Deshaun Watson, but about the situation. Here's the quotes. He spoke yesterday. I know Nick Chubb spoke yesterday. Myles Garrett was asked about the uncertainty surrounding Deshaun Watson. He said, doesn't change. Regardless of how the situation works itself out, we're going to hold ourselves to the highest standards. Garrett said his expectation, according to Jake Trotter, Garrett said his expectations for the Browns, especially defensively, will remain the same regardless of what Robinson does. Quote, no matter what happens, the defense is going to do what they do. Last time I heard, the opponent can't win if they don't score points. The offense always needs our best, so it's not going to change whether he's on the field or not on the field. Kevin Stefanski was asked about the reps between Watson and Brissett heading into camp. Stefanski said, I wouldn't get into the exact percentage, but they're both going to get a ton of reps. In terms of what Myles Garrett said, it's really interesting. See, we can make an excuse. Here's the fine line. We all understand realistically that this team is significantly better with Deshaun Watson under center as opposed to Jacoby Brissett. Deshaun Watson is an excellent football player. On the field, he's an excellent football player. He's a top 10 quarterback. Good chance to be a top 5 quarterback if he can, get back to where he was, right, with the talent around him. Jacoby Brissett is at best somewhere between 25 and 35 in the NFL. So that's a huge difference. But Myles Garrett made a great point. The team doesn't have an excuse. And this is something that the Browns, that really Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff and the leaders on this team, led by Myles Garrett on defense, who had those quotes, led by Denzel Ward, who I think has quickly become a leader, a veteran leader, even though he's still pretty young, led by, whether it's always the quarterback, even if it's Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, whoever, led by Nick Chubb, led by Amari Cooper, led by Joe Bitonio. The leaders of this team have to make it clear that although the media, the fans, we might make excuses if the Browns are not as good with Jacoby Brissett, but the players can't go there. The coaches can't go there. This team is very, very talented. They have one of the best rosters in the league. I think anybody covering the league and being fair about it will tell you the Browns have one of the best rosters in the league. Doesn't mean there's no holes, but nobody's without holes in the league. Browns roster is talented. If they play 17 games with Jacoby Brissett, are they winning a Super Bowl? No. Are they going to the playoffs? Probably not. Is it possible they could still make the playoffs? It's possible. Why? Because the rest of the roster is very good. This team's not winning 4 games with Jacoby Brissett. They're still probably around 500. I'd probably say they, would finish with 7-8 wins if it was Brissett for the whole season, because I love the roster, and that would be a disappointment. But the team can't think about it that way. Like, they got to prove me wrong and the rest of us who say, oh, well, they can't win a lot of games without Deshaun Watson, because they got a really good roster. We just talked about some of the guys: Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, Joe Bitonio. These guys get paid a lot of money. Amari Cooper. They can't use, the players and the coaches cannot use Deshaun Watson not playing, whether he misses 4 games or 8 games or the whole season. That can't be an excuse for them. We could use it for them if we want when it's all said and done, but they can't use it as an excuse. And if they go down that rabbit hole, if any of these players have the mindset, well, what are we going to do? We don't have our quarterback. That's on the leadership. And so I know a lot of people say, well, listen, you can't judge Stefanski if they don't have Deshaun Watson. Well, yes, you can. Because this team is talented enough that they should at least be competitive. They should at least be around 500, at the very least. with even Jacoby Brissett because the roster is talented enough that there's no excuse for this team to be bad. Now, with Deshaun Watson, I expect him to be excellent. Now, me personally, I don't expect him to be excellent with Brissett, but I still expect him to be competitive and at least, like I said, around 500. The other players are going to be expected to still do their jobs to the best of their ability. You can't do more than you can, right? You do control what you can control. But if the rest of the team goes out there and goes, woe is me, we don't have Deshaun Watson, we made this big trade, and we don't have Baker, now we're getting Jacoby Brissett, that's a loser mentality. Especially if he's suspended for less than the whole season, because now you're like, okay, let's do this. The rest of us can kick ass. We'll win some games here. We're going to be right in the mix, and then we're going to get our starting quarterback, and then we'll be even better. So while, yes, if you told me Deshaun Watson's playing 17 games or Jacoby Brissett's playing 17 games or Jacoby Brissett's playing 8 or 9 games, yeah, I'm going to change my prediction or my opinion of this team. But that can't matter to the players. They can't think of it that way. The coaches can't, the players can't. If they do and they're terrible when it happens, if this team stinks around, like if Jacoby Brissett plays 8 games, and the team around him stinks, if he's doing Jacoby Brissett will do his job. He's not going to win you games. You can't put it on his back. He'll play acceptable football. He won't turn the ball over much, and he'll be, adequate, okay, serviceable, whatever you want to put it. The question is, can the stars around him do their job? Because if they do, they'll win enough games to stay in the mix. There's no excuse for the other guys to play poorly. They're playing. Especially the highly paid stars. And I think they'll do their job. Myles Garrett is right. There's no excuse. The defense is not missing anybody right now. I mean, maybe they'll have injuries. Who knows? But everybody does. But this defense has their entire coaching staff back. Pretty much their entire roster back from last year except for Troy Hill. At the moment, they're completely healthy. I know there's some guys on the PUP list early, like Conklin on the defensive side. Denzel's on the PUP. It's early. He'll be back shortly. They're fine. And, it's time to go. They have to do what they can do. And I'm not even saying they got to do more than their kid. Like, you try to do too much, that's when you get yourself screwed up. But they can't make that excuse. A couple of observations I saw from Albert Breer, does one of the best in the business. Albert said, he was at camp yesterday, said the Browns are really excited about the offseason Grant Delpit had. Yeah, we've been waiting for Grant Delpit for a couple of years. This is a make-or-break season for him. He's an important piece. I expected a lot from him and John Johnson last year. I thought the safety position was a big disappointment. They got their top 3 safeties back from last year. There's a lot of talent there. John Johnson, Grant Delpit, these guys are talented players. They got to put it on the field. We can't just talk about their talent. They've got to perform. I am optimistic too. I feel good about Grant Delpit. I feel good about John Johnson. Second year in the system. I think he'll have a big year. Another observation Albert had, Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of, he thinks, within the organization, not based on one day of practice, but is kind of solidifying himself as the number 2 receiver. I've been waiting I was really high on Donovan Peoples-Jones last year. I thought he'd step up. I think he's a much better chance, obviously, with Watson. However, they need him to step up and be as good as he can, no matter who the quarterback is. We just talked about this. Browns are looking to be creative in the slot, says Albert Breer. I like this. We've talked about this. Got to use Kareem Hunt there. Demetric Felton, David Bell, Harrison Bryant. Be creative. Less tight ends. That's it. He did say one other thing. The 3rd-round pick, Martin Emerson, MJ Emerson, has stood out in the offseason and the early portion of camp. So a couple observations from Albert Breer early camp. Again, I'll be able to give my own observations when I get out there, especially when I come back from vacation. I'll be off all next week. Folks, let me talk to you about BetOnline here. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for sports wagering, live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I saved a little time here to get into the Cleveland Guardians. Guardians win their second in a row, 7-6. Nice win. Good to see Miles Straw coming out of his coma here. He's been so bad, but the last couple of weeks he's picked it up. I mean, he was almost to the point where you wanted to send him to the minors, but he picked it up in a couple of big plays in the field yesterday. Has the tying run. Naylor, though, with the walk-off homer. I'll tell you, I've never been that high on Naylor. He's finally winning me over this year. I've always loved his enthusiasm, and I thought he was an okay player. But I wasn't convinced he was that good. And he's really won me over this year. I love the way he's playing. I always love the enthusiasm, but it's really becoming infectious. And the walk-off, they needed that. The Guardians had a 3-0 lead, then it was 3-2. Then a 5-3 lead, then it's 5-4. Then they're losing. They tie it in the 8th. They win it in the 9th. Bullpen did a great job after Quantrill did not pitch well, and he's been struggling. But Hentges, De Los Santos has been really good and got came in late in the 7th inning and pitched the 8th. And Clase, of course, has been lights out all year. Those three guys combined 3 2/3, just one base runner, 2 strikeouts, got the job done. They needed it because Boston was, cooking against Quantrill. So nice job. And that's with Jose Ramirez doing nothing, going 0 for 5, and he's been struggling, obviously. Ahmed Rosario had another good game. Franmil Reyes got on base 3 times, which is good to see. Nolan Jones had another big game, 3 hits. So, nice win for the Guardians. They're 50-47. Again, the trade deadline is Tuesday. Guardians are just a game and a half behind the Twins in the division. And they're 2.5 games behind the Rays, 3 behind the Mariners, and 4 behind the Blue Jays. 3 behind the Mariners and 3.5 behind the Blue Jays for the wild card spots. They're in the mix. If they keep playing, so far this road trip, we talked about this massive 11-game road trip before they come home on August 1st with the trade deadline the next day. And so far, they're 4-3 in what's been a very tough road trip. 4 games left. I was hoping they'd go 6-5. If they split the Final Four, and at this point you want to get greedy, if you split the Final Four of this road trip, you got Boston tonight, and then Tampa Bay over the weekend, you're right there. You're right in the mix. Nobody in this division is that good. The front office needs to be aggressive. We saw the Yankees get aggressive, trade for Andrew Benintendi yesterday. And we're in trade season now. We're going to see a lot of aggressive moves over this weekend. And the Yankees were already better than the Guardians, and now they've gotten even better by acquiring Benintendi. So, obviously, we've talked about Soto. I think Ian Happ is another interesting option. I think I mentioned yesterday the Cubs are a good trade partner for the Guardians, whether it's David Robertson out of the pen, Wilson Contreras behind the plate, Ian Happ in the outfield. There's guys that can certainly help the Guardians, and the Cubs do need infield prospects. I think it's a really good matchup. I hope the front office gets the okay from ownership to spend some money here. You can't sit on your hands. You can't sit this out. The Guardians need to be aggressive. I know the Yankees are really good. I know the Astros are really good, but the division's winnable. And in a short series, it's not always the better roster that wins. We've seen that time and time again. When the Indians at the time went to the World Series in 2016, I don't think they were the better team in any of those series, especially with all the injuries they had in their pitching staff, if you remember. And yet they won them and almost won the World Series. Their lack of pitching, starting pitching, finally caught up with them. And they had obviously some dominant guys. Kluber dominated, and we all know about Miller, but got to add to it. Got to add. I'd like to see them add 2 hitters, a starting pitcher. I'd like to see them add an outfielder, a catcher, a starting pitcher, and 1 or 2 relief pitchers. I doubt they'll do all that, but you got to do something. You can't just stand pat with this team. Keep your fingers crossed. All right, I don't have time. I was going to get to some college football stuff, but I don't have time. I'll probably do it tomorrow, or that's, we can talk about that anytime. That's going to do it for me today. Please, again, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Adam the Bull. Please subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube page, which my podcast is, under their umbrella, or our umbrella of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We are about 250 subscriptions away from our 11,000 goal. The company gave us a lofty goal to hit 11,000 subscriptions. They thought they were pushing it. We said we'll do it. We wanted to get there by the end of July. They originally were hoping to get there by the football season. We said we'll get there by the end of July. And we're about 250 away. So if you know anybody that has not subscribed to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube page, please get them to do it. You do it. We want you to be a part of it. We love doing the show. We're having fun. I know you folks that are watching the show are enjoying it. We appreciate that. If you want me to make a video for you, check out my Cameo page. Check out the Locked On Browns podcast as well with G. Bush. We'll talk to you all tomorrow. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.